Hello, everybody, and my YouTube watchers. Thank you for joining us. I'm trying an experiment today. I'm going to do some painting and then stop and let my students paint and then start up the video again and paint again. So we'll just see how it goes. I'd like to explain this painting just a little bit. This painting I did for the 50/50 show. I went down to Dunes I went to Pilarcitos Creek, but then I turned north and I walked up to Dunes Beach, just looking around and seeing, what's going to make a good painting. And so that morning, the sun was shining, surprisingly enough, because it didn't shine much this summer. And it was just shining on those trees right on the bluff that has a bunch of bushes on it because the water's right there. And I just wanted to just paint those trees. So I did that. And then I'm gonna change over to here because this is the painting that I did here on top. So I'm gonna pin this one and go over there. This painting here is the one that I did that morning out when this was done in plein air, looking at the spot, sitting on a stool and painting. And then I took pictures and then I came back and painted this. This is my one that's in the 50/50 show, but this is a copy of it. And then I enlarged it. And I painted it looking at this photo here, and the feelings and the colors that I remember from the plein air painting. This is the one that I did last night. And the things that I like about the one that I did for the show, the 50/50, and this one is this warm color in the background. And that's what we're going to put on first. Well, actually, we're going to just do a quick sketch of some very simple things, and then we're going to put those background colors on. And then when we get the background and this in, then we're going to put the green of the trees, and the last thing are all the brown trunks. So the first thing I want to do is take my water-soluble graphite pencil, and I want to figure out where I want to put this line here, the top of the bluff with all the bushes on it. And I definitely don't want to put it smack halfway up. I want it lower. And then I want to leave a little room for the sand. So I'm going to kind of shrink this area because I think it looks better if the trees have most of the painting. So I'm just going to just kind of make not a perfectly straight line, but sort of a little bumpy line across. And that bumpy line is that one right there. Hi, Joanne. Glad you got on.
Thank you.
And then this here is sand, but that's in the shadow, and that makes it look like morning. So I'm just going to take this and come across, and then it comes here, and then there's little grasses that we'll put in later. I shrunk this in this painting here. I shrunk that down even lower than in this one by about 1 inch. So that's about 5 inches. That's the first step, is to do that drawing. And then the next step is to wet all the top. I'm going to use a 1-inch brush. If you don't have a 1-inch brush, you can use a 3/4.
Now, should we be painting now or watching you?
What do you guys think?
I like to watch and then paint.
Yeah.
I'm going to paint. I'm going to paint because I will never paint it if I don't paint it right now.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
painting.
But Joanne, I'm going to stop the video and let you paint.
Oh, okay, great.
Watch right now.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
So we're just trying this experiment. So I'm wetting to this top line. If any of you need paper or brushes, paints, I can order those for you when I do my ordering. Okay, so I wet the top from that line up. And now what I'm going to start with is blue sky, which is going to be, what do you think I should use for this blue sky?
Cerulean.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I was just going to say, ask Dee. I was just going to say that when
That was
she answered.
opinion.
When she answered, right? I was just going to say, ask Dee. She always has the right answer.
Not the right answer, but an opinion. That's
No,
all.
it's always good. It's always good.
It looks a little bright to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put in a little French. And I like that. That's still pretty bright, but it also went cloudy. I don't know. Can you see that? How it looks like it's just went chalky.
Mhm.
That's because cerulean is a semi-opaque paint. But it's fine. It's going to be fine because we're not going to mix it with a lot of other colors. So I'm just going to put this at the top. That's going to bring it down a little bit here. Maybe even all the way down. I am going to take my paper towel and just wipe the edges because I don't want the water from the edges to go back into the painting later. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix Antwerp and burnt sienna to make that dark green. That dark green that I love so much from Antwerp and burnt sienna. I feel like I should be looking at, well, I should be looking at both the photograph and the paintings. I'm trying to make these mountains back here right now, except I'm not going to put them in that dark. They're going to be soft, and the paper's already wet, so it's going to really kind of take off and bloom, and I'm going to put a little French into that because it was too green. And it's going to blur at the top where it's wet, and I'm just not going to worry about it much. I want it to blur. And I'm going to bring those colors down, just big strokes across. And now I'm going to take pure burnt sienna. I even cleaned my brush, which you hardly ever see me do. I'm taking burnt sienna. And I'm working it really well into the palette. Now I'm going to put this burnt sienna right over there, right into that. I want to give the illusion of hills back here that are partly in sunlight and partly shadowed. So what I'm going to do now is take some of that greenish blue and I'm just going to add more French to it. Maybe even some burnt sienna. There we go. And I just want to put in some kind of some darker areas. One down here. Maybe one here, like this. And I think the got a hair or something right there. I think the less I do to this, the better. Because we're gonna have those trees in front and really we're not gonna be looking at it. So I just wanna do that one step. I think that's where I'm gonna stop. So now it's your guys' turn to paint your sky and mountains. Now I'm going to do the bottom background, or the foreground, I should say, maybe. What I'm going to start with is,
Seems like your microphone is farther away.
well, I'm talking that way
There you
and
go.
my microphone's this way.
Oh, okay.
So I will try to, how's this?
You're good.
Better?
All right. So I am going to put raw sienna. This is just my dirty brush where I wet down here. This bottom sand, I'm trying to paint sand. And the color that I like to start with sand is raw sienna. But I also happen to have some gold next to my raw sienna, so I'm going to get some of that. My brush is a little dirty. This is raw sienna. I didn't put it up fresh, so I have to really work on that. Okay. This is sand. I'm going to put a little bit of burnt sienna into that. I like that color better. It's a great time to sign my name. VKS Jolly with a C with a line around it. Now I'm going to put this same color up here. No, I'm not. I'm going to put it here too.
Did you wet it first?
I wet the bottom, but now it's not wet.
Okay.
The very bottom 2 inches I wet.
Okay.
I want to get more brighter greens up here. So I'm going to use raw sienna and some bumblebee or hands of yellow with Antwerp. And I want to put those greens here. And then I'm going to use more raw sienna. That's too much green. So let me get rid of the picture and put the photograph on top. So I'm trying to paint these colors in here. So they're green. They've got this yellowy color looks like raw sienna. Let's just put it in and see what it does. I want to have some layers.
That's raw sienna that you're working into that.
Yes, it's raw sienna that I'm working into it.
What color did you put to make it green?
Raw sienna, Antwerp,
Oh,
and bumblebee. So I got that nice bright green. I like that that's not a solid yellow or green down here. I like that it's kind of granulating. I like the variation in the colors. I don't really like that I went over the top of that brown and made a dark spot, but I think that'll disappear. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some dark green, and I'm going to put it here and here. So you can see there's some dark, it's at the bottom of the bushes is dark. So when I change from my bushes to my sand, I'm going to have dark in the bushes. So I'm going to use burnt sienna in Antwerp. I'm going to put a little French in it to get it really dark blue, dark gray blue. And I'm going to add it in right here. And sort of paint negative, like this is the shadow of the bush. And it really pops out that spot right there. And I want to skip a little area and then put some more bush over here. And if I'm brave enough, I can sort of sculpt in. It's kind of like sculpting. So there's a dark spot right in there. I can just sort of put some shadow at the bottom of that. Put some shadows elsewhere. We can touch that up later if we need to. So I'm kind of making it lighter at the top of this shadow. So it goes from the dark and then a little less paint at the top of that. So I want to sort of make it look like it's bushes by making the shadows on the bottom of the bushes. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put the French ultramarine blue over this part to make it look like it's a shadow. Kind of looks like water here, but I don't know, sometimes you don't really need to say what things are. It makes it look like morning because of a big shadow. So I'm going to use French ultramarine blue. I'm going to find a clean spot on my palette. That's too bright. I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna to it to dull it down and make it shadowy like. I'm laughing because those two colors again.
I know. Yeah.
Okay, so instead of this being light here where my finger is and I'm pointing, I want it to be dark, not super dark, but see the blue tint to it? That's a shadow from the cliff over here. Whoa, that's not the right color. Maybe I'll put a little cerulean in it. That's better. Okay. And it is sort of a solid color. And I might just kind of change the shape in here a little bit. So what I did was I left a little white, yellowy line right there. It's like a little crack there. What I'm going to do now is make some of this green here, which is Antwerp and raw sienna and Hansa yellow medium for bumblebee. I put burnt sienna in it instead of Antwerp, or no, instead of raw sienna. It's almost, that's kind of dirty. I wanted to make it look like it's those grasses that grow in the sand, salt grass, I guess. Now, that blue that I put in there, that shadow is damp. So when I touch this, I put this little row of weeds here at the sand. See, they're not solid. So they skip, there's a few weeds and then they skip. Yes. And the next thing I want to do is put a little bit of the dark at the bottom of those weeds. So I have two colors of green, a light green and a dark green. So I put the light green in first, and then at the bottom of those weeds, I'm putting in the dark green. And that hopefully will make it look like it's got some sun on it. Then the last step to the foreground here is to use that same color that I used right here. Mostly it's French ultramarine blue with a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of cerulean, that same color I've got mixed right here. And I'm going to put the footsteps in the sand. And I'm just going to make little marks. The ones closest to me at the bottom of the paper are biggest. And then they get tinier as they get back. And I'm kind of scooping them to the right so that on the right they're making, I don't know, just back here they're smaller. Close up they're bigger. And then you can just kind of stop and say, okay, that's sand. Sand, bushes, and a weird sky. All right, now it's your turn to paint if you haven't already. Okay, the next step is to put in the green part of the trees. Not the branches and the trunks, but the green part. And what was really unusual and beautiful about that morning was that there were kind of browns in the trees, but instead of them being on the top, they were on the bottom where the sun was shining up into the trees. And so that's what made it so beautiful. The way that we're going to paint these is we're going to make these shapes. We want to leave sky showing and mountain showing. We want to try to just get the shapes of these cypress trees. We're going to start with that green that I love, tons of it. Antwerp and burnt sienna. I'm just going to use this same brush. I've used this brush for everything so far. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of French into that to get it darker. Yeah, I like that better. So those three colors were Antwerp, burnt sienna, and a little bit of French. And now you just have to be brave. So I'm going to start with this tree here. And the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to touch with my brush and sort of scooch it up so that it's making little, well, that made little triangles on the side. I don't want that. If I use more of this part of the brush, I get, there we go. That's what I want to get. I want to get like little feathers. Thank you. You can just put it in the fridge. So I'm just working the foliage of this tree here. And I'm leaving holes. I like the little part that comes out here. So I'm just using this part of my brush, that part of my brush, and I'm just going scooch, scooch, scooch. And it sort of makes needles. Now I'm going to start working this. That's higher than this. I'm going to make this go even higher. And now I'm gonna kind of make it a little more solid here. I'm painting this part right here. And it is a little more solid where you can't see through it so well. I can mix up more paint real fast. Kind of a blob. I want to try not to make it too blobby. And then there's these little branches, well, there's these here, I should put those in. They sort of swoop down. I don't want to make everything the same shape. Then there's this shape here and this shape here, which almost touches the ground, or the green part. So I'm painting that bottom, the foliage of this bottom branch. And now I'm putting in some of this. I don't want it all an inch apart from each other. I want them all different distances. And then the last little set of trees is right here. And I'm going to kind of squish them together so they're closer and it's lower. There's a shape between it. I'm just going to sort of put them in. I've been mixing a lot of paint. I want this nice and dark. So those same three colors. And I squished them out before we started. So all I have to do is touch my brush and I get a lot of paint. Okay, so I'm just going to try. I'm not doing that one, that blob. I'm leaving it out totally. I'm doing this set. Sort of. I mean, I'm kind of faking it. But that's the idea that I'm going for. The shape. And sometimes real life doesn't make the perfect composition, but so that's the first layer of greens that I'm going to put in. When I look at my screen, I can see that this one here is rounder than it is here. This is more like a flying saucer. Maybe I should make it a little wider. More like it is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the burnt sienna. I have to be a little bit careful now that, because this is all sort of drying, so I want to make sure I don't have too much water in my brush. So if I touch my paper towel, I'll take out some of the moisture in my brush. And I want to put the burnt sienna at the bottom where the sun might be shining up on these. On the right side and the bottom. Or if you feel like it's going to catch someplace else, that's good too. I think what I'm going to do is make a little bit more of the dark green with the Antwerp and the burnt sienna and the French, and a little more French this time. And I'm going to just get some darker areas. They're kind of, oddly enough, they're at the tops because the sun's shining up at the tree. So these shadows would be more up here. So oddly enough, I'm darkening the tops of the trees. The shadows and the sunlight are reversed because it's the morning. And that'll help make it look like morning. So that's how you paint the foliage. So the last step on this is to paint in all the branches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a rigger brush, which is a long, thin brush, and I'm going to mix up a bunch of dark paint, which is French Ultra and burnt sienna. Right there. So, French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. So you just get it almost black, blackish brown, really dark sepia.
I'm sorry, say the colors that you're mixing right now.
Burnt sienna and French ultramarine blue. Really, really dark brown. And I'm going to take my
Colors, you're not putting in sepia, right?
no. I could use
Making
sepia, except the problem with sepia is that it doesn't lift. If you make a mistake, it's there forever. But when you mix your own sepia using French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, then you can get away with a few mistakes. So I've got this brush all loaded with my homemade sepia, and I'm just going to start at the bottom right here and kind of look at the picture and look at the shapes of the branches of the cypress trees, remembering several things, that they're thicker at the bottom and they get skinnier as they go up. There's not very many, a lot of straight places. When branches break off or come off, they come off at an angle of about 25 to 35. So that's one way you can always know to paint trees, is what angle do the branches come off. So I'm going to start right here and go up. I'm going to start right here and kind of go up to these guys up here and have some bends. So I'm starting right at the base here. Pressing hard, kind of twirling my brush a little so that it's not too straight. And now I'm starting to lift up my brush, and I catch, I stop when I hit the green, I paint some more in the sky, and then like that. So it looks like that tree branch is getting smaller, and it's going right up to that foliage. I like this one that comes out, brands in, then catches this guy. So I'm going to start it right here. And I'm holding my brush up and so it's not being perfectly straight.
Ooh, lovely.
Thank you. And this one has kind of a thick spot here, and then it's got another one that comes off. So I'm just going to kind of start it close to it and make it so thick that it touches this guy. Whoops, I went into my yellow part. Again, I get to the green, and then I lift up, and then I go to the sky part, and I keep going. So now this has it's like a branch is getting ready to go off on mine right here. So I'm going to do that. And they can crisscross a little bit, but you want to be careful you're not doing too big of X's. I've talked about the shape of an X being a really strong shape in a painting. Your eye will go right to the X. And if that's not your focal point, then you don't want to make strong X's. Or cruciforms, sometimes they're called. And you know, the crookeder and the crookeder the better. Weird branches going off are good. So I'm gonna put this guy in now. This guy is big and thick up to here, and it has branches that come off and catch these two pieces here, this one and this one. So there's 4 scrawny ones in between, but I'm gonna kind of ignore them for a while. I might put them back in later, but right now I'm pointing at the branch I'm gonna put in the picture, which is this big trunk. It's the thickest part. I don't want it smack in the center. I'm going to move it off to the side just a little bit. And it comes up, and then it sort of bends in, and then it comes up. So now I've got to make it thickest at the bottom. And I'm giving a little bit of a rough edge right there, because that should be the bushes kind of hiding it a little bit. And then it comes up. I need somebody to catch there. Here. And now I'm going to make a branch that comes off, bends down, and then catches all of this here. So I think I'm going to do it. I don't want to do it from where I just put that guy off. That would have been a good spot for it. I'm going to do it from here. Comes up, it bends down, and then they come up and catch these guys. So they have to get skinnier as they go out. They can't, like, so where I'm pointing with my brush right now is the bottom of this tree needs to be thicker than that part. So I'm gonna thicken my bottom. Then it starts to make more sense. This guy needs something that holds him up. So maybe I can. So the fun thing about putting in the foliage before the branches is that you get, it's easier because then you can make the foliage go to it. Or no, the branches and the trunks go to your foliage. There's a lot of foliage up there, so this, I'm gonna thicken this part here, because something's gotta hold it up. And then once you think you kind of have enough, it's time to stop. It's really nice to have branches that go through the little parts of the sky.
The time to stop. That's the key. That's the key. That's the key.
I'm not ready yet though, because I have to connect this part right here.
Yeah.
Needs a few too. So I have these two and I have that much distance. And if I skip a nice big spot here to put in a branch to get to these guys, I think that's a good composition. So now I'm gonna put those in. Okay, so I'm gonna start, I don't want to start the same distance from the edge here. Different distance. I'm gonna put it right here. Just about the same distance. And there's a bunch of little ones that are coming up. So I don't want to put all thick ones in. I want to have some of these little ones, but not all the same distance apart either. Everything's got to be. I think that's my email dinging at me. Well, that's a nice.
Yeah, I think that is email binging. Someone else had that before on a call.
Yeah.
No worries.
Then I have to kind of catch all the pieces of foliage. I have to make branches go out to them. So now I just need to ask myself, is that enough? Or is it too stark? Does it need a few more skinny little ones going up places? Or do I stop?
Looks good. Gosh.
I do feel like it could just use like, Put them in though. If they don't look good, then you know, sometimes it's better just to stop. Sleep on it sometimes. Okay, so that's how you do that part.
Cool.
Your turn now.
Okay, I fixed mine, I think.
Okay.
Except the three in the front now are like too close together, but oh well.
Oh, now it's much better. Yeah, much better. Yeah, really good.
Whoops. Yeah.
Okay. So what I did while the recording was off was I put in some little dark browns right there and there and there. And then I sort of flicked a few. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some burnt sienna to the right side of those tree trunks. Not all of them, but just some spots, so that we feel like the sun is warming, is hitting that part.
What color was that again?
This is pure burnt sienna
Thank you.
over the right side of the tree so that we feel like the sun is shining on that side. Not so much a shadow, but the warmth. of the morning sun. You can even just put a few branches that are burnt sienna only and not dark. And that will sort of make it like the sun also. Oops, not that big blob though. But it's burnt sienna, so I can lift it right up. There's our painting.
I like that. I like the burnt sienna addition.
Yeah, I do too.
So I added it on mine. It's hard to see it, but
It looks good,
better.
Joanne.
Yeah, it's
Want
better.
to just hold your paintings up so that people who are watching YouTube can see how you did? Because it's recording right now. Yeah, very nice, Dee.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I like this one.
Yeah, I really like how your eye got swirled into that focal point, which is those two branches that are hanging out and the warm
Thanks.
light behind them. Arlene, do you want to show your painting to the people on you that are watching on YouTube? Beautiful. Nice foliage shapes and great tree trunks.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to show?
Here's mine, Mary Kay.
Oh, there's Nina.
Nina, can you pull it back from the screen? Yeah, there. Beautiful.
Pretty.
I really like that dark French ultramarine blue shape. I think
Mhm.
that's really settles it. And your trees are gorgeous. There's a beautiful feel to it. Your background is just that warm, soft. So you painted that fast too, didn't you?
Yeah, it's a small one. It's my last card size.
Okay, it's a beautiful card.
Put it back
Thank you.
up.
Nina, I didn't see you before. Hi.
Hi, Arlene. I came in late.
I know
think
you
you're
came in
muted.
late and now I see you.
Vicki, do you want to show yours?
I can't hear you.
Ah, it's lovely. Yeah,
Oh, I
Pretty.
see.
yeah.
I
Very
was saying the wrong name.
I said earlier that Vicki
Nice.
looks like it's a Jeannie Carbonetti painting, where it's semi-abstract and
Who is this
semi-realistic,
down
and
here?
it's called expressive realism.
Wait a second.
Yeah, it's lovely that way. Dee,
You saw mine.
did you want to show it again though, so the people on Zoom can see it, or did we already do
Has
that?
anybody
I think
been
we did.
talking?
We did it.
Oh, that's right. And the
Can't
color.
hear.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right,
you.
I'm going to stop our recording. Thank you, everybody, for
Thank
joining us on Zoom.
Awesome.